Okay, thank you, everyone. So let's start on this presentation, how to use Bash in penetration testing. Bash. So let's talk about some origins. Where did Bash came from? What is its history, origins? The picture on the screen is not the Bash itself, but it's from its predecessor, the Bourne shell. New Bash, or simply Bash, was written by Brian Fox and was first released in 1989. It is a replacement for the Bourne shell that was developed by Stephen Bourne at Bell Labs. There was also another replacement, but this time for the Thomson shell in this case, whose executables files have the same name, the SH, right, that you're using in Bash as well. Well, we are talking about 1979 now, so probably before most of us had born. Okay. Brian Fox decided to give the name of his interpreter to Bash, which means that is a kind of acronym for Born Again Shell, right? Because he was bringing back the Bourne shell from Bourne shell that was developed. So it is present in basically any Unix-like system, Mac OS, and also for Windows. And you can find more information on their website that is not listed here. Okay. So what is Bash? Bash is a program in your computer like any other, but designed to be easy for you to talk to. So every program on your computer has the ability to do a vast amount of different things, read files, start other programs, do math, control devices. The main difference between Bash and most other programs is that, unlike them, Bash was not programmed to perform a certain task. Bash was programmed to take commands from you, the user, to do so efficiently. A language, right, was created which allows users to speak to the Bash program and tell it what to do. So this language is the Bash shell language, and you are about to become a little bit more familiar with it as we're going through this talk. In a sense, a shell program is one that provides users with an interface to interact with other programs. And there is a large variety of shell programs, each with their own language. So some popular ones are the C shell, the Z shell, the Corn shell, Bourne shell, Debian's Umpqua shell, the Dash, and so on. There's so many. So Bash is currently the most popular and the most available shell. So even though all of these shells use similar syntax, it is important to be fully aware of what shell you are actually writing code for. So often you hear people refer to their code as shell code, which is about as specific as source code. Source code of what? Z, Python, Java. We don't know. So here we are going to have some exposure on how to write Bash shell code. So you should use it only with the Bash shell, not any other. Okay? All right. So most of you, we have quite a bit of experience around using computers. You are, a security professional, all of us, right? But even us, security professionals, there are so many resources today. You probably do a lot of these interactions in a visual interface composed, of buttons and widgets, text fields, and images. And this graphical user interface has become the centerpiece of most users' computer interaction. There are other ways of interacting with your computer, though. Right? Bash uses a method directly counter to the ideas of graphical user interfaces. It runs in a text-only console, where interactions is mainly limited to displaying characters on your screen and reading them from your keyboard. That's it. But don't get it wrong. While a text-only interface is certainly less potent, I would say, in what it can display, it's certainly not well suited for displaying images. Its simplicity makes it very easy for us as humans to find consistent structure in how we can interpret the text that appears in it and how we can issue our comments. So you'll find that most skilled computer users are widely more efficient in performing tasks through a text-based interface than performing the same tasks using programs with a graphical interface. Believe me. So you'll soon learn that the simplicity of Bash shell language is a key element to this. So what can you do with Bash? So you can see in this image, right, there's some kind of a, fun stuff to do, but you can do a lot of stuff. You will use it to find out what files are in your computer and what is in them. You will use it to run programs that can make all sorts of changes in your computer, from editing files into images to converting them, from moving and copying files around to creating automatic backups, from downloading code of a new program to compiling and running them. But before you get too excited, it is key that you remember Bash is a tool, a single tool in a huge toolbox of programs. So Bash alone will only let you to do basic things with files and other programs. So you need to understand all the other tools in the toolbox of your systems or your Pentesting toolbox that you're going to have to use. It's just one single tool. Okay. All right. So Bash for Pentesting. So why Bash is important for Pentesting? The penetration testing technology today is written with, I would say, oversimplified graphical user interfaces. Though easy to use, they often offer very little control over the operations they perform and don't offer a very informative experience to their users. Another drawback is that many of these security assessment solutions are only developed to identify and automate exploitation for the most obvious and unobfuscated instances of vulnerabilities. For every other practical instance of a vulnerability, penetration testers need to rely on their own scripts and assessment tools. So if you want to be a good, efficient, and self-respecting hacker or a penetration tester, you must be able to write scripts. So penetration testers often need to automate commands, sometimes from multiple tools, and this is most efficiently done through short programs they write themselves. So weird and outlier instances of vulnerabilities with their own customized tools and are capable of automating security testing according to their own terms. Firewalls, intrusion detection or intrusion prevention systems, and other security monitoring solutions are becoming smarter. And the only way we as penetration testers are ever going to beat them is by learning to build our own tools to weaponize our command lines. Okay? So using it will make your life much easier. It will speed up your execution so you can accomplish much more as a penetration tester. All right, so where to start? So we're going to start through, going through documentation. You're going to use all the help you have, books, courses. That will help a lot, right? But what you're going to give you today in this course, we're going to give you a lot of templates that we're going to start building together that you're going to learn enough from this initial template that you don't know nothing about Bash, for example, you'll be able to start creating your own stuff. So you create basic things and you're going to progress a little bit more up to the point that from there you can build a lot of different stuff and very cool stuff in your environment. Okay, but to get to the next level, for sure, you're going to need to read more documentation, not only about the tool, but about the command lines. It's very important that you also understand and know more about Linux command lines, because that's what you're going to use basically, right? Okay. So we talk it now. Let's start creating, your first bash script. All right, ready? Okay. So if you prefer, you can start doing that your own with me. Okay. So it's gonna be something very easy to do. You'll be able to follow me if you can, and I'll give a lot of everything that you need to know to start working with me on this. Or you just get this, and again you're gonna do that later by your own. So the first thing to do is obviously start using your preferred editor and create a file. And it is very important that this file is going to have the extension .sh, because that's what bash understand. That's a bash extension for a bash script .sh. So in my example here I gave like a vi myscript.sh. Okay, and when you open this, you can start editing. You can start creating your first bash script. Now you notice that there is a kind of a string in the beginning, right? A kind of a strange string. And that's what we call the shebang. So a script may specify this, what we call shebang. That is this code that is in blue there on the first line, meaning that the script should always be run with bash rather than another shell. And slash, forward slash being forward slash sh is an executable representing the system shell, and actually it is usually implemented as a symbolic link pointing to the executable for whichever shell is the system shell. So then after that, after this first line, what you can do here, we can probably want to clear the screen with a clear command, and have some couple lines using the echo command. Okay, you give 2 echoes, and then you're going to have to provide something. You're probably going to want to say something. And on my case here, I'll just say, hello from CyberTalks, right? And you use that with the commas. Okay, now you save this, and when you save this, the next important thing you're going to have to do is to give permissions for execution, because if you just save it by default, you will not be able to run this program. You'll not be able to execute this program. You have to give permissions. And if you're familiar with permissions, that's nice. If you are not, unfortunately, we won't have the timing here to explain that. But I'm using the one of the options here that is using the chmod command, given a 755 to myscript.sh, which was this script that I just created. Just so you know, so the first set of numbers that you see here, the 7 is the maximum permission that I can give, and that's given to the owner of the file. So the 7 is attributed to the owner of the file. So I'm giving the owner to the file maximum permission. That would be read, write, and actually also execute. And the others for the group and anybody else, just level 5. So that's basically what it means here. But you need to give the permission to execute that. All right, you did that. I hope you're following me. Now, if you execute that command, and the way you do that is just doing a period / and the name of the file that we created, in this case myscript.sh, and what you'll be able to see in the screen here is just that, hello from CyberTalks. That's it. Okay, and then you got to the prompt again. Very easy. Okay, so let's see what we can get more now. Let's start now. Start building to this basic template. It's gonna be very fun. So now let's, for example, start using variables. So creating variables, okay? So this is the same code, you see, right? But the first difference that you see here from the previous one is that now we have a kind of a pound sign here. That's when I'm adding a comment, okay? And what's I'm putting here, comment with the pound sign and writing global variables because I'm writing my first variable. And then I'll define my first variable. And what is the command that we run to find out what user we are running in at Linux? What was the command? It's if you said, who am I? You got it right. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm creating the variable called the user, and I'm attributing to this user variable the output of this command, the who am I, which would be my username. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. And then the next line that I added here from the previous script is just add another echo here to display another text. How are you today, user? And I inputted my variable here. I put a $sign and the name of the variable, user. So the username should be appearing this here. So can you imagine how will be the output of this? Yes, so the output will be that. Again, so hello from CyberTalks. How are you today? In my case, Ferrari, because that was my username when I created this. Okay. So only with this, we can start doing a lot of interesting things. But let's, continuing working on this. So as you can see, what I did here, so on this script, I now added, take a look at the last line. I put some breaks. So I create another variable, which is just, for, appearance. There is some kind of an equal sign, so it's going to be easier for people to see. So I put 2 breaks. So I don't have to type it all that, equals again every time. And then I use my first command. And I decided to do, so anybody knows what's the difference from ping from Unix or Linux and Windows. So, so in Linux, it just ping 4 times, but in Linux or Unix system, so if you use ping, it won't stop until, you interrupt the process. So what I'm doing here, I'm doing the command, issuing the command ping -C3 to ping only 3 times, and I'm putting the domain. In this case, econsole.org, and semicolon if config. So I'm putting 2 commands in a single line. So this is going to execute first the ping 3 times, and after that, we do the if config. And as you can expect, that's going to be the output that you're going to see here. So hello from CyberTalkers, the banners, the breaks that I added, and then the ping results, the 3 times, and then the if config. Okay, doing good? All right, so the next thing I would like to tell you is about suppression. Suppression is something very important that is going to be something very useful for penetration testing. Okay, in this case, let's say, for example, that I need to delete a couple of files, but I don't want that the output will provide something like this, as you can see on the output. Oh, no such file or directory, because I don't want the user to see that, because that could be suspicious, right? Or maybe it's not about suspicion, it's just because not going to be a clean thing from your program. So you don't want too much information for a user. So then what we're going to do is you're going to go back to your editing tool, and on the line of your RM and the type of file that you want to remove, temp files, doc files, and text files, you can do that kind of a magic thing that is to greater than /dev/no. And what that's going to do, it's going to suppress the text. So it's basically sending the output to a kind of a trash, or sending your output to nowhere. So it's not going to be displayed to your user. And that's very useful. Another example of that is when you're using, for example, wget in the website, it comes with a lot of information, and you probably don't want that information appear to you. Probably if you are building your program, you obviously want that because you want to see if it's working properly. But when you are up to publishing your result, your script, you probably start adding those kind of things to make it cleaner or nicer. Okay. All right. Another one that I would like to show is the pause. So sometimes you want some kind of interaction with the user. So let's say, for example, if you go to the end of this script here, you issue the ping -C3, the domain, and then you put ping complete. But before jumping out to the if config, you want the user to press any key, press enter to continue. So if you use that line, read -p, and then you can put the text that you want, right? Then the next command, the if config, is only going to be issued after the user press enter. Sometimes it's very important. You need that kind of interaction. Okay, so our script is becoming bigger and bigger. So it's very interesting. Something also very important that can help a lot us is when you want to, so grabbing input from the user. So on the example here, what you're gonna do is I'm gonna do the echo -n, please enter your first name, for example. And when I do that, right after that, I add read first name. And then whatever the user put as a first name, I'm getting that. So, and then I do echo, dollar first name, and the output will be there. So please enter your first name. It appears, my text Luciano, and then it printed Luciano today. It's pretty neat. So what you can do with that? Well, now I think it's time to start doing something a little bit more interesting, right? So let's say that you have a target company, you want to do a recon on people that work on that company. So where would you try to get information from me? So do a Google search on people background and try to find some information like the ones that I have here. Those are some of the sites that I use. And what you're going to have to do to start building a script, you're going to have to use those URLs. So try to use, for example, PQ now and type in a name there, first and last name, and take a look at the URL. So do you see a name in the URL? So you see a name here. Now we can script this site up, and that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to open the browser, right? And if you're using Mac OS, so as I am, you just type in open -A and Google Chrome, give the URL and input your variables in the right place. If you're using Kali Linux, for example, you can use just the Firefox command. Did you also note that I have an & character at the end of the line? So this helps you, and it's done so we don't lose control on the terminal when I'm editing the script, and that will give me control back. So if even so you got a situation that your terminal hangs somehow, you just do Control-C and get it back to you. So the PQ that displayed the URL with the first name _ last name, and that's exactly what I'm putting here. The next thing that I can do is I can add some kind of check for response. So I don't want, if the user put something wrong or didn't put anything there, to screw up my program. So here we are adding to use a kind of an if statement, and you can just copy that one. So you're gonna use the if, open brackets, space, -z, which means that if that variable is empty, then echo, you did not enter a name, and exit the program. And we added on both variables, for the first and for the last name, 2 times here. The same kind of a check in here, for the first and for the last name. Okay, sleep command. Sleep command is also another one very interesting. This is, I'm adding them here. You can see every time I open one of the tabs here from many different sites that I have here. And you can see that the way I put the names here are different. One is an _, the other is /4. That's according to what I got from analyzing the websites. But after that, I put a sleep one, especially in Kali Linux or other systems. So sometimes you will realize when you're running multiple tabs, sometimes one of the tabs is not going to open. That happens just because sometimes there is not enough time for the browser to process that information, and it skips that. So when you do this kind of a sleep one, for example, then you give time for the browser to process that and don't miss any of the commands that put it up here. Okay, that's what it is about. So the final result may be something like this. So instead of you having to go and remember all websites and type the same information over and over, you can have a script that automates that for you. So what else we can be trying to build using the same concept here? Something very similar could be a DNS Recon. So the same thing here, the same concept here. I do the same thing here. Again, you can use the previous script with some modifications. Due to the time, I'm not going to the details, but it's very intuitive now. So create a variable domain now instead of first name and last name. Now it's a variable domain. Read it and build your URLs. Here are some examples that I found on Google, and the URL modifications I had to do to insert my variables on them. also see that there is a kind of a sleep 4 in the beginning. And that's because sometimes the first one to open is very hard. Sometimes you need to give a little bit more time for the first one to open. I realized that when I'm using my own scripts, and that fixes the problem. Okay. The result will be something very similar to the previous one, but now you're going to have, multiple tabs with the DNS information for multiple sites to get a lot of useful information for you. Cool, right? So we start doing a lot of different things. What else you could be doing here? Okay, we can start doing something a little bit more complex here. So let's talk about this simple scanner. So we start with the shebang as an interpreter. So you're gonna do a scanner now. How cool is that? So we're gonna start with the shebang and the interpreter to use. So let's follow this with a comment to explain what the script does. Then let's clear the screen. Now let's use the nmap command to request a TCP scan on our LAN looking for port 3306. Note that your IP address may differ in your terminal using the ifconfig command on Linux or the ipconfig command on Windows to determine your IP address. And to stay stealthy, we also send the standard nmap output that would usually appear on the screen to a special place in Linux, right, where it disappears. I already talked about that. And we are doing this on a local machine, so it doesn't matter so much, but if you were to use the script remotely, you want to hide the nmap output. We then send the output of the scan to a file named MySQL in a grabbable format, meaning a format that grep can work on. So the next line displays the MySQL file. We store the output in and then pipes that output to grep to filter for lines that include the keyword open, right? Then we put those lines into a file and MySQL scan2. Finally, we display the content of the file MySQL scan2. And the final file should only include lines of output from nmap with hosts that have port 3306 open. Save this file as mysqlscanner.sh. Give yourself execute permission with the chmod 755. As we can see, these scripts was able to identify the only IP address on my LAN with MySQL running. Your results may differ depending on whether any ports you are running MySQL installations on your local network or force. And from here, you can use your imagination to make variables of this script. You can request an input to type in the IP address, or even automatically shows the content, the output of the ifconfig before asking for the IP address. Check for different ports, use nmap in different ways. That's your imagination. And then you can start building things a little bit more complex, like this script. We'll check, for example, if a server is vulnerable to OpenSSL Heartbleed bug. But this is just a portion of the script. If the user desires, it starts attacking the server, searching for leaked data in the server's RSA private key. It stores the results as a text file and tries to find usernames, passwords, emails using the leaked data. It is tested on Joomla, Drupal, WordPress. So my point is that there's a lot you can do with this. If the user desires, it can use the credentials and try to brute force the site even using the Hydra. So this script will invoke nmap, Metasploit, Hydra, and many others. Okay, and that's it. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. So what I'd like to say now as a final word is that, as you see, you don't have to be a programmer to start creating batch scripts, but you need to know Linux and understand what you're doing. And I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Here you now be using more of batch scripting to automate and create your own scripts and make your life easier. Thank you.